AEW CEO Tony Khan clarifies his, quote, balance of power tweet. So before last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, President and CEO Tony Khan tweeted out that, quote, the balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight, close quote, in a tweet. This got fans all speculating that it was some huge announcement. What he said is, quote, tonight we have a great lineup for AEW Dynamite live on TNT at 8, blah, blah, blah. For the rest of 2020, AEW will keep delivering great matches on Wednesday nights. Plus, there are massive surprises ahead. Please join us on TNT tonight. The balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight. Khan was asked by PW Insider to clarify the tweet, and the CEO issued the following statement, quote, there's more to come. Pac coming back is the beginning of a huge push for the rest of the year. As I said in my last tweet just now, balance of power and storyline refers to Eddie's strong power base as a character, which could be threatened, but it also refers to the big push AEW is making for the rest of the year and through December and into 2021, close quote. Pac made his AEW debut at the end of Dynamite, setting up a feud with Eddie Kingston. They also teased Shaquille O'Neal, Cody Rhodes feud, so I get it. It was definitely a big show, not like Sting showed up or anything. Khan posted the following after Dynamite went off the air, quote, thank you everyone for who watched Dynamite tonight. It's great to get Pac back in AEW. We've made some big announcements and huge matches for next week and for weeks to come into December. Tonight opened a new chapter. I promise indelible moments on Dynamite are still coming in 2020. So there you have it. So he's still pumped up. He's not backing off of that statement. He's saying big things are coming to AEW Dynamite over the next couple months. Reba Hardy, wife of Matt Hardy and regular on-screen talent, has a reputation for being a little bit outspoken. Back in September, she was vocal, and rightly so, on her criticism of AEW regarding how they handled Matt Hardy's concussion during his match with Sammy Guevara at All Out. In a Twitter outburst, she claimed that everyone involved in the building should be ashamed of themselves. We remember that. Therefore, many fans were surprised, actually, to see Reba, as I was, appear at the climax of the recent Elite Deletion match. I was even surprised that she showed up on Dynamite a couple days later. Reba appeared at the climax of the recent Elite Deletion match between Hardy and Guevara at Full Gear. However, according to a recent Jim Cornette drive-thru episode, Reba was allegedly somewhat difficult to work with during filming. Someone who worked on the production side of the Elite Deletion match noted Reba's difficult behavior. Quote, rule number 1 was for no one to speak to Reba Hardy unless she spoke to them, and don't park any production trucks, vehicles, or put any equipment near her car. Reba filmed a scene in the warehouse by Matt's home where she played piano, but everyone was made to wait outside while she filmed. Everyone was just standing around waiting, close quote. Unsurprisingly, Reba already hit back at Cornette on Twitter, yet this is the third grown-ass man in 3 months who don't even know me, straight up shut blah, blah, blah. So she was just very not happy. You can check out the episode of Jim Cornette and see what the fuss is about. All Elite Wrestling signs Jade Cargill to the AEW women's division. This is the first time I've actually seen them put out a press release about this stuff. So AEW announced a multi-year deal with rising wrestling sensation Jade Cargill. We remember her. She appeared last night on AEW Dynamite. She said, quote, I joined AEW because I have a voice. I'm ready to shake up the women's division. I'm going to flip this promotion on its head, close quote. She had a big feud with Brandy Rhodes and Cody, and maybe Shaq will be involved. She was a pretty built person. There's no question about that. Of course, Jade, some background on her, played basketball at Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida. And brings a high-level athleticism and intensity to the AEW's women's division. With her background as a professional trainer and explosive demeanor on the mic, Jade is poised to make a powerful impression inside and outside of the ring. So Jade Cargill is now All Elite. Whether or not AEW were going to run house shows was a big talking point around the time of AEW's conception. However, speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer revealed the original house show schedule Tony Khan was planning to run through 2020. So he kind of has an idea. The original plans were for 20 shows a year alongside the 4 pay-per-views and 52 tapings of Dynamite. Quote, AEW isn't going to run around doing house shows, I can tell you that. When AEW first started, the original thing that Tony Khan told me was 52 TV shows, 4 pay-per-views, and around 20 house shows a year. They would do the house shows maybe every other week. He was talking to me about how you wouldn't do any house shows during the week in New Japan, big shows, because your top guys would all go to New Japan, close quote. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic put a stop to all that stuff, but Meltzer went on to discuss how the regular spots at Daly's Place has helped them preserve costs of running Dynamite since many of the AEW talent already live around Florida. Meltzer didn't speculate on whether house shows would begin once the pandemic was over. However, Jim Ross touched on the same subject back in May of 2020, that said he believed they would. JR noted that house shows were vital in order for wrestlers to learn the fundamentals and work in front of a live audience. Totally agree with that. It was also revealed earlier in the year that Fyter Fest, one of the AEW's annual pay-per-view type shows, was originally meant to take place in Wembley Arena in London, England. Wembley has a long storied connection to pro wrestling dating back early 90s, something which Tony Khan was planning to capitalize on. All Elite Wrestling has been very lenient when it comes to outside bookings of their stars, as the company has been giving them permission to take indie bookings and even participate in tournaments and even shows outside of the promotion. This has changed in recent months due to the current pandemic, and All Elite Wrestling has been now a little bit more cautious when it comes to where and when their talents can work. Example, AEW star Joey Janela was pulled from the number 1 contenders tournament as he recently faced AJ Gray in an indie event at GCW, where his opponent had tested positive for COVID. Even though Janela himself didn't test positive for COVID, his exposure to AJ Gray, who did test positive, led to AEW playing it safe and pulling Joey from his scheduled match. AEW President and CEO Tony Khan recently had a conversation with Sports Illustrated where he talked about enforcing stricter restrictions and guidelines on AEW talents when it comes to taking indie and outside bookings not related to AEW. Quote, I implemented a policy where people were only supposed to work indie shows when certain conditions were met. There have been times when people did not take that seriously, so I have tightened up restrictions. I'll still allow it under certain conditions, but people need to look at me in the eye and say that the conditions are being met. Our talent and their opponent need to be tested before the show, and there also needs to be a good reason why the match is important. He goes on to say, this is important for everyone's safety as well as importance for our show. I've been flexible in the past because I thought it was good for the talent to have the opportunity to earn as well as great for the fans and the indies as a whole, which I totally agree with him. That is why they should totally allow AEW guys to appear on indie shows. This just helps everybody. We also don't run every night of the week, so it allows for talent to get some extra reps too. I agree with that as well. So we have a policy and it'll be enforced strictly. Goes further and says, I'm not going to end it, but we are taking a closer look at it more so now than ever. People need to come to me directly about this. I am going to be strict about what people can and can't do, but I won't say you won't see people make special appearances on independent shows because I think there is a lot of merit to that. Close quote. Totally agree with Tony Khan. You need to have these guys hit the indie scenes. The problem is just not right now with everything going on in the country.